Question 1. The efficiency study reveals that a specific manufacturing unit is consistently exceeding its budget for scrap and rework, significantly contributing to the organization's overall cost of poor quality, COP. The unit manager proposes immediate, drastic cuts to quality inspection staffing and material testing protocols to achieve short-term cost savings, arguing that these are non-value-added activities. As the Six Sigma Black Belt responsible for this area, what is the most appropriate course of action to address this situation? Option A. Focus solely on improving the efficiency of the inspection process itself, without investigating the underlying reasons for the defects that necessitate the inspections. Option B. Conduct a detailed root cause analysis of the scrap and rework, quantifying the financial impact of each defect type, and developing targeted process improvements to eliminate their occurrence, presenting this data to management to justify investment in quality initiatives over short-term cuts. Option C. Immediately implement the unit manager's proposed staffing and testing reductions to achieve the requested cost savings, with a plan to reevaluate quality metrics in the next fiscal quarter. Option D. Escalate the unit manager's proposal to senior leadership, recommending approval based on the immediate budget relief, and suggest a separate, future project to address quality issues if they persist. The correct answer is B. Conduct a detailed root cause analysis of the scrap and rework, quantifying the financial impact of each defect type, and developing targeted process improvements to eliminate their occurrence, presenting this data to management to justify investment in quality initiatives over short-term cuts. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires a Six Sigma Black Belt to balance the immediate financial pressures of a business unit with the long-term strategic imperative of quality improvement, specifically addressing the cost of poor quality, COP. The unit managers focus on short-term cost reduction, while understandable from a departmental budget perspective, risks undermining the foundational principles of Six Sigma and potentially leading to greater long-term financial detriment through increased COP. A black belt must navigate this by demonstrating the tangible financial benefits of addressing COP, aligning quality initiatives with overall business objectives, and ensuring that cost-saving measures do not compromise product or service integrity. The correct approach involves a thorough analysis of the COP data to identify the root causes of defects and inefficiencies, and then developing and implementing targeted solutions that not only reduce COP, but also improve customer satisfaction and operational effectiveness. This aligns with the ethical responsibility of a Six Sigma professional to drive sustainable improvement and uphold the integrity of processes and products. Furthermore, regulatory frameworks such as those governing product safety and consumer protection, e.g., in the U.S., the Consumer Product Safety Act, or FDA regulations, depending on the industry, implicitly require organizations to manage quality effectively to prevent harm and meet standards. By focusing on root cause analysis and data-driven solutions, the Black Belt is adhering to the principles of continuous improvement and risk mitigation, which are often indirectly mandated by regulatory compliance and industry best practices. An incorrect approach that prioritizes immediate cost cuts without addressing the underlying issues of COP would be professionally unacceptable. This failure stems from a lack of understanding of the true drivers of COP, which include internal failures, scrap, rework, and external failures, warranty claims, customer complaints. Ignoring these root causes, as would happen if the unit manager's proposal were accepted without scrutiny, leads to a superficial cost reduction that masks escalating long-term expenses and potential regulatory noncompliance if quality issues lead to product failures or safety concerns. Another incorrect approach would be to dismiss the unit manager's concerns entirely without a data-driven counterargument. This would be a failure in stakeholder management and could alienate key personnel, hindering future improvement efforts. It also misses an opportunity to educate management on the strategic importance of COP reduction. The professional decision-making process in such situations requires a structured approach. First, thoroughly understand the data and the problem, in this case, the COP and the unit manager's proposal. Second, evaluate proposed solutions against Six Sigma principles and their potential impact on COP and overall business goals. Third, use data to build a compelling case for the recommended course of action, quantifying the benefits of addressing COP and the risks of superficial cost cutting. Finally, communicate this case effectively to stakeholders, fostering collaboration and ensuring alignment. Question 2. Examination of the data shows a significant increase in customer complaints related to product defects, impacting both customer satisfaction and potential regulatory scrutiny. As a certified Six Sigma Black Belt, you are tasked with optimizing the manufacturing process to reduce these defects. Considering the regulatory framework for this exam, which failure mode and effects analysis (FME) approach would be most appropriate for addressing this situation? Option A. Implement a rapid FME focusing only on the most frequently reported defects to quickly implement corrective actions, without extensive documentation of the entire FME process or detailed analysis of less frequent but potentially high-impact failures. Option B. Perform a FME that focuses on identifying potential failure modes and their effects, but omits detailed documentation of the risk assessment and mitigation strategies, as the primary goal is process improvement rather than a formal regulatory submission. Option C. Conduct a design FME, DFME, to identify potential failure modes in the product design itself, followed by a process FME, PFME, to address potential failures in the manufacturing steps, ensuring all identified risks are evaluated against current regulatory standards and mitigation plans are documented for compliance audits. Option D. Prioritize FME efforts solely on identifying opportunities for cost savings in the manufacturing process, assuming that cost reduction will inherently lead to improved quality and regulatory compliance. Correct answer is C. Conduct a design FME, DFME, to identify potential failure modes in the product design itself, followed by a process FME, PFME, to address potential failures in the manufacturing steps, ensuring all identified risks are evaluated against current regulatory standards and mitigation plans are documented for compliance audits. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires a Six Sigma Black Belt to balance the immediate need for process improvement with the critical requirement of adhering to regulatory compliance, specifically within the framework of the Certified Six Sigma Black Belt exam's jurisdiction. The challenge lies in identifying the most effective FME approach that not only addresses process optimization, but also demonstrably meets all applicable regulatory mandates without introducing new risks or violating existing ones. A deep understanding of the chosen, jurisdiction-specific regulations is paramount. The correct approach involves a systematic and documented FME that prioritizes risks based on their potential impact, likelihood of occurrence, and detectability, with a strong emphasis on regulatory compliance. This approach is right because it directly aligns with the principles of robust quality management systems, which are often mandated by regulatory bodies. By thoroughly analyzing potential failure modes and their effects, and then implementing controls to mitigate high-risk items, the Black Belt ensures that the process not only becomes more efficient, but also remains compliant with all relevant laws and guidelines. This proactive risk management is a cornerstone of regulatory adherence and ethical practice in many industries. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on cost reduction without considering regulatory implications would be professionally unacceptable. This failure stems from a disregard for legal obligations, potentially leading to non-compliance, fines, and reputational damage. Another incorrect approach that bypasses thorough documentation of the FME process and its outcomes would also be professionally flawed. This lack of documentation hinders auditability and makes it impossible to demonstrate compliance to regulatory bodies, violating principles of transparency and accountability. Finally, an approach that implements controls without a clear understanding of their impact on regulatory requirements risks creating new compliance issues, demonstrating a superficial understanding of both process optimization and regulatory frameworks. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a comprehensive understanding of the regulatory landscape relevant to the process under review. This understanding should then inform the FME process, ensuring that risk assessment and mitigation strategies are developed with compliance as a core consideration. The FME should be a collaborative effort, involving subject matter experts and stakeholders, and all findings and actions must be meticulously documented. Regular review and validation of the FME against evolving regulatory requirements are essential for sustained compliance and effective process optimization. Question 3. Assessment of how a certified Six Sigma Black Belt should integrate U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission (SEC) and Financial Industry Regulatory Authority, FINRA, compliance requirements into a project plan for a new financial product launch, ensuring adherence to regulatory frameworks without compromising project timelines. Option A. Rely on generic project management software to automatically flag potential regulatory issues and adjust the schedule as needed during execution. Option B. Delegate the responsibility for identifying and integrating regulatory requirements to a junior analyst with minimal oversight from the black belt. Option C. Proactively identify all applicable SEC and FINRA regulations, consult with legal and compliance teams, and embed specific compliance tasks and review periods into the project schedule. Option D. Develop the project schedule by prioritizing Six Sigma efficiency metrics and then retroactively assess regulatory compliance needs. The correct answer is D. Develop the project schedule by prioritizing Six Sigma efficiency metrics and then retroactively assess regulatory compliance needs. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because a Six Sigma black belt is tasked with developing a project plan that must adhere to specific regulatory requirements for data handling and reporting within the U.S. financial services industry, as governed by the Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC, and the Financial Industry Regulatory Authority, FINRA. The challenge lies in balancing the efficiency and effectiveness of Six Sigma methodologies with the stringent compliance obligations, ensuring that project timelines do not inadvertently lead to shortcuts that compromise regulatory adherence. Careful judgment is required to integrate compliance checkpoints seamlessly into the project schedule, without creating undue delays or operational burdens. The correct approach involves proactively identifying all applicable SEC and FINRA regulations relevant to the project scope, particularly those concerning data integrity, customer information protection, and reporting timelines. This regulatory framework mandates specific documentation, audit trails, and reporting frequencies. Integrating these requirements into the project plan means building in sufficient time for regulatory review, validation, and potential remediation activities. This approach ensures that the project not only achieves its Six Sigma objectives, but also meets all legal and ethical obligations, thereby mitigating risks of fines, reputational damage, and operational disruption. The regulatory justification stems from the SEC's and FINRA mandates for robust compliance programs and accurate record keeping, which are fundamental to maintaining market integrity and investor confidence. An incorrect approach that prioritizes speed over compliance would involve developing a project schedule based solely on Six Sigma best practices for efficiency, without adequately factoring in the time needed for regulatory approvals or data validation, as per SEC and FINRA guidelines. This failure risks creating a plan that, while efficient in theory, is practically unexecutable due to regulatory hurdles. It would also represent an ethical failure by potentially exposing the organization to noncompliance, which can have severe legal and financial repercussions. Another incorrect approach would be to delegate the responsibility for regulatory integration to a junior team member without proper oversight or expertise in financial regulations. This abdication of responsibility is professionally unsound and ethically questionable, as the black belt ultimately bears accountability for the project's compliance. It fails to recognize the critical nature of regulatory adherence in a highly regulated industry and could lead to significant oversights. A third incorrect approach might be to assume that standard project management software automatically accounts for all regulatory requirements. While such tools can aid in scheduling, they are not designed to interpret or enforce specific industry regulations like those from the SEC and FINRA. Relying solely on generic scheduling tools without specific regulatory input is a critical oversight and a failure to exercise due diligence. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a thorough understanding of the regulatory landscape relevant to the project's domain. This includes consulting with legal and compliance departments early in the planning phase. The black belt must then translate these regulatory requirements into actionable tasks and timelines within the project plan, ensuring that each phase is reviewed for compliance implications. Risk assessment should specifically include regulatory noncompliance as a significant risk, with mitigation strategies embedded in the schedule. Question 4. Which approach would be most appropriate for a certified Six Sigma black belt investigating a deviation in a regulated manufacturing process to ensure both effective root cause identification and adherence to regulatory compliance guidelines? Option A. Perform a quick cause and effect diagram analysis focusing only on the most obvious potential causes to expedite the resolution process and minimize immediate disruption. Option B. Conduct a comprehensive cause and effect diagram analysis, meticulously documenting all potential causes identified within relevant categories, and ensuring that the investigation process and findings are traceable and auditable according to industry-specific regulatory standards. Option C. Utilize a cause and effect diagram to brainstorm potential causes, but defer detailed documentation and validation of findings until after the immediate problem is resolved. Option D. Focus the cause and effect diagram solely on equipment-related issues, as these are typically the most straightforward to address in a manufacturing setting. The correct answer is B. Conduct a comprehensive cause and effect diagram analysis, meticulously documenting all potential causes identified within relevant categories, and ensuring that the investigation process and findings are traceable and auditable according to industry-specific regulatory standards. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because a Six Sigma black belt is tasked with identifying root causes for a quality issue within a regulated industry. The challenge lies in ensuring that the chosen methodology for cause and effect analysis not only effectively identifies the root causes, but also aligns with the stringent regulatory requirements of the industry, which often mandate specific documentation, validation, and traceability of quality improvement processes. Failure to adhere to these regulations can lead to significant penalties, product recalls, and damage to the organization's reputation. Careful judgment is required to balance the need for thorough root cause analysis with the imperative of regulatory compliance. The correct approach involves utilizing a cause and effect diagram, Fishbone/Ishikawa, that is specifically designed to facilitate a structured investigation into potential causes across defined categories relevant to the regulated environment. This approach is correct because it systematically breaks down the problem, allowing for the identification of all plausible contributing factors. Crucially, when conducting this analysis within a regulated framework, the process must be documented meticulously, with clear links between identified causes, evidence gathered, and proposed solutions. This documentation serves as an auditable trail, demonstrating due diligence and compliance with regulatory expectations for quality management and risk mitigation. The regulatory framework for industries like pharmaceuticals or medical devices, for example, often requires that all quality-related investigations, including root cause analysis, be performed in accordance with good manufacturing practices, GMP, or similar quality systems, which emphasize thoroughness, accuracy, and traceability. An incorrect approach would be to conduct a superficial cause and effect analysis without considering the specific documentation and validation requirements mandated by the regulatory body. For instance, relying solely on anecdotal evidence or informal discussions to populate the fishbone diagram, without a plan for validating the identified causes or documenting the investigation process, would be a regulatory failure. This lack of rigor fails to meet the standards of evidence and traceability expected by regulators. Another incorrect approach would be to focus exclusively on technical causes identified through the fishbone diagram, neglecting potential systemic or procedural causes that are often critical in regulated environments and require specific corrective and preventive actions, COPPA, to be documented and implemented. This oversight can lead to recurring issues and noncompliance. The professional reasoning process should involve first understanding the specific regulatory landscape applicable to the organization and the product or service. This includes identifying relevant regulations, guidelines, and quality system requirements. Subsequently, the Six Sigma black belt should select and adapt Six Sigma tools, such as the cause and effect diagram, to align with these regulatory mandates. This means ensuring that the chosen categories within the fishbone diagram are comprehensive and relevant to the regulated context, and that the entire process, from data collection to cause identification and proposed solutions, is thoroughly documented and auditable. The focus should always be on demonstrating a systematic, evidence-based approach that satisfies both the quality improvement objectives and the regulatory compliance obligations. Question 5. Implementation of a Voice of the Customer (VOC) program for a new product launch requires selecting the most effective and ethically sound approach to gather and interpret customer requirements, Which of the following best represents a professional and compliant best practice for VOC and requirements gathering in a regulated industry? Option A. Relying primarily on internal team assumptions and readily available market research reports to infer customer needs, with minimal direct customer engagement. Option B. A comprehensive strategy combining direct customer feedback mechanisms, surveys, interviews, focus groups, with analysis of existing customer interaction data, support tickets, complaint logs, and rigorous validation of findings. Option C. Utilizing a rapid, high-volume online survey with broad, generic questions to quickly gather a large dataset, prioritizing speed over depth of insight. Option D. Focusing exclusively on easily measurable operational metrics that indirectly reflect customer satisfaction, without direct qualitative feedback. The correct answer is B. A comprehensive strategy combining direct customer feedback mechanisms, surveys, interviews, focus groups, with analysis of existing customer interaction data, support tickets, complaint logs, and rigorous validation of findings. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because effectively capturing the voice of the customer (VOC) is foundational to successful Six Sigma projects, directly impacting the relevance and impact of improvements. Misinterpreting or inadequately gathering VOC can lead to wasted resources, solutions that don't address actual customer needs, and ultimately, project failure. The challenge lies in translating subjective customer feedback into actionable, measurable requirements that align with business objectives, all while adhering to ethical data handling and privacy principles. Careful judgment is required to select the most robust and compliant methods for VOC gathering. The correct approach involves a multifaceted strategy that triangulates information from various customer touchpoints and employs structured methodologies. This ensures a comprehensive understanding of customer needs, pain points, and expectations. Specifically, it prioritizes direct customer interaction through methods like surveys, interviews, and focus groups, complemented by analysis of existing data such as complaint logs, support tickets, and sales data. This systematic and validated approach aligns with the ethical imperative to genuinely understand and serve the customer, which is implicitly supported by regulatory frameworks that encourage fair business practices and customer satisfaction. In the context of a regulated environment, this thoroughness also helps demonstrate due diligence in understanding customer requirements, which can be crucial for compliance and risk management. An approach that relies solely on anecdotal evidence or internal assumptions about customer needs is professionally unacceptable. This fails to provide a statistically sound or representative understanding of the customer base, leading to biased insights and potentially ineffective solutions. Ethically, it can be seen as a failure to act in the customer's best interest by not making a genuine effort to understand their perspective. Furthermore, it risks violating principles of transparency and fairness if decisions are made based on incomplete or misrepresented customer information. An approach that focuses exclusively on easily quantifiable metrics without exploring the underlying reasons or qualitative feedback is also professionally flawed. While metrics are important, they often don't reveal the why behind customer behavior or satisfaction. This can lead to superficial improvements that don't address the root causes of customer dissatisfaction. Ethically, it can result in a disconnect between reported performance and actual customer experience, potentially misleading stakeholders and customers alike. An approach that prioritizes speed and ease of data collection over the depth and accuracy of customer insights is professionally unsound. This often involves using generic or leading questions in surveys, or neglecting to follow up on ambiguous responses. Such methods can yield superficial or misleading data, undermining the integrity of the VOC process. Ethically, it can be viewed as a lack of commitment to understanding the customer, potentially leading to decisions that negatively impact them due to a superficial grasp of their needs. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve 1. Clearly defining the project's objectives and the scope of customer understanding required. 2. Identifying all relevant customer segments and their respective communication channels. 3. Selecting a mix of qualitative and quantitative VOC gathering methods that are appropriate for the objectives and customer segments. 4. Ensuring that data collection methods are designed to elicit honest and representative feedback, with built-in checks for bias. 5. Analyzing the gathered data rigorously, looking for patterns, themes, and root causes. 6. Validating findings with customers where possible, 7. Documenting the VOC process and findings transparently. 8. Continuously reviewing and refining VOC strategies based on project outcomes and evolving customer landscapes. Question 6. Market research demonstrates a significant customer dissatisfaction with the onboarding process for a new financial product. A Six Sigma Black Belt is tasked with leading a DMAIC project to improve this process. Considering the strict regulatory environment for financial services in the UK, which of the following approaches best ensures compliance throughout the DMAIC cycle? Option A. Focus on implementing rapid process changes in the improve phase based on initial hypotheses, assuming that any improvement will inherently lead to better regulatory outcomes due to increased efficiency. Option B. Prioritize identifying the root causes of dissatisfaction through extensive customer data analysis in the analyze phase, even if some data points require detailed personal information that may not have explicit consent for this specific analysis. Option C. Conduct a thorough statistical analysis in the analyze phase to pinpoint the most significant drivers of dissatisfaction, and then proceed with implementing solutions without further consultation with legal or compliance teams, as the analysis itself is considered a sufficient due diligence step. Option D. Define the project scope to include all customer touchpoints, collect comprehensive data on customer interaction, and ensure all data handling and analysis strictly adhere to the Financial Conduct Authority (FCA) regulations and the UK GDPR, with specific protocols for data anonymization and consent management. The correct answer is B. Prioritize identifying the root causes of dissatisfaction through extensive customer data analysis in the analyze phase, even if some data points require detailed personal information that may not have explicit consent for this specific analysis. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the pursuit of process improvement, a core tenet of Six Sigma, with strict adherence to regulatory compliance, particularly concerning data privacy and integrity. The certified Six Sigma Black Belt must ensure that the DMAIC methodology is applied in a manner that respects all applicable laws and ethical guidelines, preventing potential legal repercussions, reputational damage, and loss of customer trust. The challenge lies in identifying and mitigating risks associated with data handling and analysis throughout the DMAIC phases. The correct approach involves systematically integrating regulatory considerations into each phase of the DMAIC methodology. This means that during the define phase, the project scope must explicitly acknowledge and incorporate relevant regulatory requirements. In the measure phase, data collection methods must be designed to ensure data accuracy, completeness, and compliance with privacy laws, such as the General Data Protection Regulation, GDPR, if the jurisdiction is the UK/EU. The analyze phase requires that any statistical analysis or root cause identification does not inadvertently violate data privacy or lead to discriminatory outcomes. The improve phase must ensure that proposed solutions are compliant with existing regulations and do not introduce new compliance risks. Finally, the control phase must establish mechanisms to monitor ongoing compliance and adapt to any changes in regulatory landscapes. This comprehensive integration ensures that the Six Sigma project not only achieves its operational goals, but also upholds legal and ethical standards, thereby safeguarding the organization. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on achieving statistical significance in the analyze phase without considering the origin or privacy implications of the data would be a significant regulatory failure. For instance, if the data used for analysis was collected without proper consent or anonymization, it would violate data protection laws. Another incorrect approach would be to implement improvements in the improve phase that bypass established regulatory approval processes or introduce new products or services that have not undergone necessary compliance checks. This could lead to fines, product recalls, and legal action. A third incorrect approach would be to neglect the control phase's role in monitoring regulatory adherence, assuming that initial compliance is sufficient. This oversight can lead to gradual drift from regulatory requirements, exposing the organization to future non-compliance issues. Professionals should adopt a proactive and integrated approach to regulatory compliance within DMAIC. This involves early and continuous engagement with legal and compliance departments, conducting thorough risk assessments at each DMAIC phase, and ensuring that all project team members are trained on relevant regulations. The decision-making process should prioritize compliance as a non-negotiable prerequisite for any improvement, rather than an afterthought. This ensures that the pursuit of operational excellence is always conducted within a robust ethical and legal framework. Question 7. During the evaluation of a critical process parameter for a new product launch, the Six Sigma Black Belt discovers that the existing measurement system has been in place for several years and has always been assumed to be adequate. However, preliminary data suggests potential inconsistencies. What is the most professionally responsible course of action for the Black Belt to ensure the integrity of the project's data and subsequent analysis? Option A. Immediately seek to replace the measurement system with a newer, more technologically advanced model, believing that a new system will inherently be more accurate. Option B. Proceed with the project using the existing measurement system, assuming its historical adequacy, and address any significant data anomalies as they arise during analysis. Option C. Rely on the experience of long-term operators who are familiar with the measurement system to interpret and adjust the data as needed. Option D. Conduct a comprehensive measurement system analysis, MSA, to quantify the variation and bias within the current measurement system before proceeding with further data collection and analysis. Correct answer is D. Conduct a comprehensive measurement system analysis, MSA, to quantify the variation and bias within the current measurement system before proceeding with further data collection and analysis. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it involves a critical decision point in a Six Sigma project where the integrity of the measurement system directly impacts the validity of all subsequent data analysis and improvement efforts. A flawed measurement system can lead to incorrect conclusions, wasted resources, and ultimately, failure to achieve the desired process improvements. The Black Belt must exercise sound professional judgment to ensure the data is reliable before proceeding. The correct approach involves a thorough and systematic measurement system analysis, MSA, to assess the accuracy, precision, and stability of the measurement system. This includes evaluating sources of variation such as the equipment, the operator, and the method. By identifying and quantifying these variations, the Black Belt can determine if the measurement system is capable of reliably distinguishing between actual process variations and measurement error. This aligns with the ethical responsibility of a Six Sigma professional to ensure data integrity and to base decisions on sound, validated information, which is a fundamental principle in quality management and professional conduct. An approach that prematurely concludes the measurement system is adequate without sufficient evidence is professionally unacceptable. This bypasses the critical step of validation, potentially leading to decisions based on faulty data. This failure to rigorously assess the measurement system can be seen as a breach of professional responsibility to ensure the accuracy and reliability of the data used in decision-making. Another incorrect approach, focusing solely on the perceived ease of use of the measurement system, overlooks its fundamental purpose, to provide accurate and precise measurements. While ease of use is a desirable attribute, it cannot compensate for a system that generates significant error or bias. This approach prioritizes convenience over data integrity, which is a significant professional failing. Finally, an approach that relies on anecdotal evidence or past assumptions about the measurement system's performance without current, objective data is also professionally unsound. Six Sigma methodologies demand data-driven decision-making. Relying on assumptions or past experiences without revalidation can lead to the perpetuation of errors and flawed conclusions, undermining the entire improvement initiative. Professionals should employ a structured decision-making process that prioritizes data integrity. This involves understanding the critical requirements of the project, identifying potential risks, such as measurement system error, and implementing appropriate tools and techniques, like MSA, to mitigate those risks. When faced with uncertainty about the measurement system, the default professional action is to investigate and validate, rather than to proceed with assumptions. Question 8. The monitoring system demonstrates that while the process map visually outlines the key operational steps, it does not explicitly identify data collection points required by the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, FDA, for pharmaceutical manufacturing. The current data collection plan focuses on cycle time and defect rates, which are valuable for efficiency, but do not capture critical quality attributes mandated by FDA regulations, which approach best aligns with the certified Six Sigma Black Belt's responsibility to ensure regulatory compliance. Option A. Proceed with optimizing the process based on the existing cycle time and defect rate data, assuming that improved efficiency will indirectly lead to better compliance with FDA standards. Option B. Focus on improving the accuracy of cycle time and defect rate measurements, as these are the primary metrics for Six Sigma projects and are generally considered sufficient indicators of overall process health. Option C. Develop a separate parallel data collection system specifically for FDA compliance, without integrating it into the main process map or existing data collection efforts. Option D. Revise the process map to include specific data collection points for critical quality attributes as mandated by FDA regulations, and update the data collection plan to capture these attributes alongside cycle time and defect rates, ensuring data integrity and traceability. The correct answer is D. Revise the process map to include specific data collection points for critical quality attributes as mandated by FDA regulations, and update the data collection plan to capture these attributes alongside cycle time and defect rates, ensuring data integrity and traceability. Explanation: this scenario presents a professional challenge because the certified Six Sigma Black Belt must ensure that process mapping and data collection activities align with the specific regulatory framework governing their industry. Misinterpreting or misapplying these regulations can lead to non-compliance, financial penalties, reputational damage, and in regulated industries, potential harm to consumers or patients. The Black Belt's judgment is critical in selecting the most appropriate approach that balances process improvement goals with legal and ethical obligations. The correct approach involves utilizing process mapping and data collection methods that are explicitly designed to capture information relevant to regulatory compliance, and that can be validated against established regulatory standards. This ensures that the data collected is not only useful for process improvement, but also serves as evidence of adherence to legal requirements. Regulatory frameworks often mandate specific data points, collection frequency, and documentation standards. Therefore, an approach that directly incorporates these requirements into the process map and data collection plan is essential for demonstrating compliance and facilitating audits. An incorrect approach that relies solely on generic process mapping without considering regulatory mandates fails to address the specific legal obligations of the organization. This can lead to the collection of insufficient or irrelevant data, making it impossible to prove compliance during an inspection or audit. Furthermore, it may overlook critical control points or failure modes that are of regulatory concern, thereby increasing the risk of non-compliance. Another incorrect approach that focuses on data collection for process improvement alone, without integrating it with the process map's regulatory touchpoints, creates a disconnect. While the data might be valuable for efficiency, it may not be structured or collected in a way that satisfies regulatory reporting or validation requirements. This can result in a situation where the organization has data but cannot use it to demonstrate adherence to laws and guidelines. A third incorrect approach that uses outdated or non-validated data collection tools, even if they seem to capture relevant information, poses significant risks. Regulatory bodies often require the use of validated systems and methodologies to ensure data integrity and reliability. Using unvalidated tools can lead to questions about the accuracy and trustworthiness of the collected data, potentially undermining any claims of compliance. The professional decision-making process for similar situations requires a thorough understanding of the applicable regulatory framework. The Black Belt must first identify all relevant laws, regulations, and industry guidelines. Then, they should analyze how these requirements translate into specific process steps, data points, and control measures. The process map should be designed to visually represent these regulatory touchpoints, and the data collection plan should be tailored to gather the necessary evidence of compliance. Regular review and validation of both the process map and data collection methods against regulatory updates are also crucial. Question 9. Performance analysis shows a manufacturing process with a DPMO of 500, an individual stage yield of 95%, and a rolled throughput yield of 85%. Which approach best supports a comprehensive risk assessment for this process? Option A. Focus the risk assessment solely on the individual stage yield, as it represents the immediate output quality of each step, and consider DPMO and rolled throughput yield as secondary metrics that may not directly reflect the most critical risks. Option B. Prioritize the rolled throughput yield as the primary indicator of risk, assuming that higher RTY signifies a more robust and less risky process, and then briefly review DPMO and individual stage yield for supporting context. Option C. Analyze each metric, DPMO, individual stage yield, and rolled throughput yield, in isolation to identify potential issues within each specific measure, without necessarily integrating their findings into a unified risk assessment. Option D. Assess the risk by focusing on the DPMO, as it directly quantifies defects per million opportunities, and then investigate the individual stage yield and rolled throughput yield to understand the cumulative impact of these defects on overall process efficiency and potential for nonconformance. Correct answer is D. Assess the risk by focusing on the DPMO, as it directly quantifies defects per million opportunities, and then investigate the individual stage yield and rolled throughput yield to understand the cumulative impact of these defects on overall process efficiency and potential for nonconformance. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires a Six Sigma black belt to interpret process performance metrics, DPMO, yield, rolled throughput yield, within the strict confines of the certified Six Sigma black belt exam's regulatory framework, which is assumed to be US-based for this context. The challenge lies in selecting an approach that not only accurately reflects Six Sigma principles, but also aligns with the implicit regulatory expectations of a US-centric professional certification. Misinterpreting the scope or applying generic Six Sigma knowledge without considering the exam's specific jurisdictional constraints could lead to an incorrect assessment of the situation. The black belt must demonstrate an understanding of how these metrics inform risk assessment and decision-making, all while adhering to the exam's defined boundaries. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a comprehensive risk assessment that leverages the interrelationships between DPMO, yield, and rolled throughput yield to identify potential failure modes and their impact. This approach is right because it directly addresses the prompt's focus on risk assessment using these specific metrics. In a U.S. regulatory context, particularly in industries like manufacturing or healthcare, understanding process capability and defect rates, as indicated by DPMO, is crucial for compliance with quality standards and potential regulatory oversight, e.g., FDA regulations for medical devices, EPA for environmental processes. Yield and rolled throughput yield provide a more holistic view of the process's efficiency and ability to deliver conforming products or services. By analyzing these metrics together, a black belt can proactively identify areas of high risk, such as processes with low yield or high DPMO, which could lead to noncompliance, customer dissatisfaction, or increased costs, all of which have regulatory and business implications. This integrated view aligns with the principles of proactive risk management expected in regulated environments. Incorrect approaches analysis, focusing solely on DPMO without considering yield or rolled throughput yield, is an incomplete risk assessment. While DPMO quantifies defects, it doesn't fully capture the overall efficiency or the cumulative impact of defects across multiple stages. This could lead to overlooking risks associated with processes that have a low DPMO, but also a very low yield due to other inefficiencies, or vice versa. Prioritizing only rolled throughput yield without examining the underlying DPMO and individual stage yields is also flawed. Rolled throughput yield can mask significant issues within individual process steps. A high RTY might be achieved through extensive rework or inspection, which is not a sustainable or risk-averse strategy, and could violate principles of lean manufacturing or quality management systems that emphasize defect prevention. Analyzing each metric in isolation without considering their combined implications for risk is a failure to perform a comprehensive risk assessment. For instance, a process might have a seemingly acceptable DPMO but a very low yield, indicating significant downstream issues or scrap that represent a substantial financial and operational risk, potentially impacting compliance with cost efficiency regulations or contractual obligations. Professional reasoning. Professionals facing similar situations should first clearly define the scope of the analysis, including any applicable regulatory frameworks or certification requirements. They should then identify the key performance indicators relevant to the problem and the desired outcome, in this case, risk assessment using DPMO, yield, and RTY. The next step is to understand the interdependencies between these metrics and how they collectively inform risk. This involves evaluating each metric's contribution to the overall risk profile and considering how they might interact. Finally, professionals should synthesize this information to develop a prioritized list of risks and recommend mitigation strategies, ensuring that their conclusions are supported by data and align with both Six Sigma best practices and any relevant regulatory or ethical guidelines. Question 10. Strategic planning requires a robust project communication plan. Considering the certified Six Sigma Black Belt, exams focus on regulatory frameworks and best practices. Which of the following approaches best ensures effective and compliant project communication? Option A. Focusing communication efforts exclusively on the immediate project team and the project sponsor, assuming other departments will be informed through their own internal channels. Option B. Communicating project information only when specifically asked by stakeholders to avoid overwhelming them with unnecessary details. Option C. Primarily relying on informal conversations and email exchanges with the project sponsor and core team members to disseminate project updates. Option D. Developing a detailed communication plan that identifies all key stakeholders, their information needs, preferred communication methods, and establishes clear feedback loops and reporting structures. The correct answer is D. Developing a detailed communication plan that identifies all key stakeholders, their information needs, preferred communication methods, and establishes clear feedback loops and reporting structures. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the need for efficient project execution with the critical requirement of ensuring all stakeholders are adequately informed and have the opportunity to provide input, especially when dealing with potential impacts on their operations or responsibilities. Mismanaging communication can lead to resistance, rework, missed opportunities, and ultimately project failure, all of which have significant financial and reputational consequences. The Black Belt must navigate diverse stakeholder needs and communication preferences while adhering to established project governance and potentially regulatory reporting requirements, even if not explicitly stated in the prompt, as good practice dictates. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves proactively identifying all relevant stakeholders, assessing their communication needs and preferences, and developing a structured plan that outlines the frequency, format, and content of communications. This plan should also define feedback mechanisms and escalation paths. This aligns with the principles of effective project management and Six Sigma, which emphasize data-driven decision-making and stakeholder engagement. From a regulatory perspective, while no specific regulation is cited for this exam, robust communication plans are a cornerstone of good corporate governance and risk management, often implicitly expected by regulatory bodies overseeing business operations and compliance. Transparency and timely information dissemination are key to maintaining trust and ensuring alignment with organizational objectives. Incorrect approach is analysis, an approach that focuses solely on communicating with the project sponsor and the immediate project team, while neglecting other potentially impacted departments or individuals, fails to acknowledge the interconnectedness of business processes. This can lead to unforeseen roadblocks, resistance from unengaged parties, and a lack of buy-in, which can undermine the project's sustainability and benefits realization. Ethically, it represents a failure to engage all relevant parties who may be affected by the project's outcomes. An approach that relies on ad hoc, informal communication channels without a documented plan is also problematic. While informal communication can supplement formal channels, it lacks structure, accountability, and a clear record. This can result in inconsistent messaging, missed information, and an inability to track communication effectiveness. It also fails to meet the implicit expectation of organized and auditable project management practices. An approach that prioritizes delivering information only when requested, rather than proactively disseminating it, demonstrates a reactive rather than a strategic communication strategy. This can lead to stakeholders feeling uninformed, undervalued, and potentially blindsided by project developments. It fosters an environment of distrust and can hinder collaboration, as stakeholders may not have the necessary context to contribute effectively or anticipate impacts. Professional reasoning. professionals should adopt a proactive and structured approach to project communication. This involves a systematic process of stakeholder identification and analysis, followed by the development of a comprehensive communication plan that is integrated into the overall project management framework. Regular review and adaptation of the communication plan based on project progress and stakeholder feedback are essential. This ensures that communication remains relevant, effective, and supportive of project objectives, while also upholding ethical standards of transparency and engagement. Question 11. Quality control measures reveal a persistent pattern of minor defects in a manufactured component. A Six Sigma Black Belt is reviewing the project that aimed to address this issue. Which of the following approaches best reflects a rigorous evaluation of the Six Sigma methodology and tools employed to ensure compliance and effectiveness? Option A. Focusing on the implementation of a single, advanced statistical tool that was recommended by a senior engineer, without independently verifying the data's suitability for that tool or its direct relevance to the identified defect types. Option B. Conducting a comprehensive audit of the project's data collection protocols, the statistical analysis methods used for root cause identification, and the validation of the implemented solutions against the original defect metrics and relevant regulatory standards. Option C. Reviewing the project's final report for completeness and ensuring that the statistical tools mentioned were utilized, without deep scrutiny of the data's integrity or the tool's specific application to the root cause. Option D. Assessing the project's success based on the perceived efficiency of the team and the speed at which the final report was submitted, assuming the chosen tools were appropriate due to their common usage in similar industries. The correct answer is C. Reviewing the project's final report for completeness and ensuring that the statistical tools mentioned were utilized, without deep scrutiny of the data's integrity or the tool's specific application to the root cause. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because a Six Sigma Black Belt is tasked with evaluating the effectiveness of implemented methodologies and tools, which directly impacts product quality, customer satisfaction, and regulatory compliance. The challenge lies in discerning which approach genuinely aligns with best practices and regulatory expectations, rather than simply appearing efficient or superficially compliant. Careful judgment is required to ensure that the chosen approach not only addresses the identified quality issues, but also adheres to the principles of continuous improvement and data integrity expected within a regulated environment. The correct approach involves a systematic review of the Six Sigma project's documented processes, data collection methods, and the statistical tools employed to validate their appropriateness and effectiveness in addressing the root causes of the quality deviations. This approach is best professional practice because it prioritizes evidence-based decision-making and ensures that the implemented solutions are robust and sustainable. Regulatory frameworks, such as those governing product safety and quality in the United States, e.g., FDA regulations for medical devices or pharmaceuticals, or EPA regulations for environmental standards, mandate that quality control processes are validated, documented, and demonstrably effective in preventing defects and ensuring compliance. A thorough evaluation of the methodology and tools ensures that the project's outcomes meet these stringent requirements, thereby mitigating risks of non-compliance, product recalls, and reputational damage. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on the speed of project completion, without rigorous validation of the tools and data, fails to meet regulatory expectations. For instance, relying on anecdotal evidence or superficial process improvements without statistical verification can lead to the masking of underlying systemic issues, which is a direct violation of the principle of data-driven decision-making fundamental to Six Sigma and regulatory compliance. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes the use of the most complex statistical tools without considering their relevance to the problem or the data's suitability would be a failure. This can lead to misinterpretation of results, incorrect root cause identification, and ultimately, ineffective solutions, potentially contravening regulations that require accurate and reliable quality assessments. A third incorrect approach that involves bypassing established documentation protocols or data integrity checks, even if it appears to expedite the process, poses significant regulatory and ethical risks. Such actions undermine the auditability of the quality system and can lead to severe penalties if noncompliance is discovered during regulatory inspections. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. First, clearly define the objectives of the evaluation, aligning them with both Six Sigma principles and relevant regulatory requirements. Second, gather all relevant documentation, including project plans, data logs, statistical analyses, and validation reports. Third, critically assess the chosen Six Sigma methodologies and tools against established best practices and regulatory guidelines, focusing on their appropriateness, effectiveness, and the integrity of the data used. Finally, document the findings and recommendations clearly, ensuring that any proposed actions are both technically sound and compliant with all applicable laws and regulations. Question 12. The evaluation methodology shows that a Six Sigma black belt is leading a critical process improvement project. During the project, the black belt discovers that a key team member, whose input is vital for a specific phase, is their sibling. This relationship was not disclosed at the project's inception. What is the most appropriate immediate action for the black belt to take? Option A. Ask the team member to recuse themselves from all project activities related to their expertise to avoid any perception of bias. Option B. Immediately disclose the relationship to their direct manager and the project sponsor to discuss potential mitigation strategies. Option C. Continue with the project, ensuring objective decision-making and documenting all project outcomes meticulously. Option D. Continue with the project, but instruct the team member to avoid discussing any project-related matters outside of formal meetings. The correct answer is C. Continue with the project, ensuring objective decision-making and documenting all project outcomes meticulously. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires a Six Sigma black belt to navigate potential conflicts of interest and ensure the integrity of a critical process improvement initiative. The black belt's responsibility extends beyond technical execution to upholding ethical standards and adhering to organizational governance. Careful judgment is required to balance project goals with the need for unbiased assessment and reporting. The correct approach involves the black belt proactively identifying and disclosing any potential conflicts of interest to their direct manager and the project sponsor. This demonstrates transparency and allows for appropriate mitigation strategies to be implemented, such as recusal from specific decision-making processes or the involvement of an independent reviewer. This approach aligns with ethical principles of integrity and accountability, ensuring that the project's outcomes are not compromised by perceived or actual bias. It also adheres to general principles of good corporate governance, which mandate disclosure of potential conflicts to maintain trust and fairness. An incorrect approach would be to proceed with the project without disclosing the relationship. This failure to disclose creates a significant ethical breach, as it undermines the principle of impartiality. It could lead to decisions being made based on personal relationships rather than objective data and project needs, potentially resulting in suboptimal outcomes or even project failure. This also violates the trust placed in the black belt by the organization and stakeholders. Another incorrect approach would be to downplay the significance of the relationship and assume it will not influence decisions. This demonstrates a lack of professional judgment and an underestimation of the impact of perceived bias. Even if the black belt believes they can remain objective, the appearance of impropriety can erode confidence in the project and the black belt's credibility. This approach fails to recognize the importance of stakeholder perception and the need to proactively manage it. A third incorrect approach would be to delegate the entire responsibility for managing the conflict to the team member involved. While collaboration is important, the black belt, as the leader of the initiative, has ultimate responsibility for ensuring its integrity. Shifting this burden entirely abdicates their leadership role and fails to address the core issue of potential bias at the project leadership level. The professional reasoning framework to employ in such situations involves a systematic process. 1. Identify potential conflicts of interest. Recognize any personal, financial, or professional relationships that could influence judgment or create an appearance of impropriety. 2. Assess the impact. Evaluate the potential severity of the conflict on the project's objectivity, fairness, and outcomes. 3. Disclose proactively. Immediately inform relevant parties, manager, sponsor, ethics officer if applicable about the identified conflict. 4. Seek guidance and collaborate on mitigation. Work with leadership to determine the most appropriate course of action, which might include recusal, independent review, or other measures. 5. Document all actions. Maintain a record of the conflict, the disclosure, and the agreed-upon mitigation strategies. 6. Maintain objectivity. Continuously strive for unbiased decision-making and reporting, even after mitigation measures are in place. Question 13. Stakeholder feedback indicates a desire to leverage advanced statistical software for a critical Six Sigma project, but concerns have been raised regarding data security and the auditability of analytical processes. As the Six Sigma Black Belt, which approach best ensures both project success and adherence to regulatory requirements. Option A. Select statistical software that offers the most sophisticated analytical functions and is widely recognized for its advanced capabilities, assuming that robust statistical output inherently implies regulatory compliance. Option B. Conduct a thorough evaluation of statistical software, focusing on applications that provide strong data validation features, comprehensive audit trails, and demonstrable compliance with relevant data protection and reporting regulations, even if it means a higher initial investment. Option C. Continue using the existing, familiar statistical software that has been used for previous projects, as its historical usage suggests it is adequate for current needs, without investigating newer options or their specific compliance features. Option D. Prioritize statistical software that is the least expensive option available, provided it can perform the basic statistical tests required for the project, with the understanding that compliance can be managed through separate manual processes. The correct answer is A. Select statistical software that offers the most sophisticated analytical functions and is widely recognized for its advanced capabilities, assuming that robust statistical output inherently implies regulatory compliance. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires a Six Sigma Black Belt to balance the efficiency of statistical software with the critical need for data integrity and compliance, particularly within the context of regulatory frameworks governing data handling and reporting. The challenge lies in ensuring that the chosen software application and its implementation not only facilitate robust statistical analysis, but also adhere to any applicable regulations concerning data security, privacy, and the auditability of analytical processes. Careful judgment is required to select a solution that meets project objectives without compromising regulatory standing or the trustworthiness of the results. The correct approach involves a comprehensive evaluation of statistical software applications, prioritizing those that offer robust data validation features, clear audit trails, and compliance with relevant data protection regulations. This approach is right because it proactively addresses potential regulatory pitfalls. By selecting software that inherently supports data integrity and provides mechanisms for demonstrating compliance, the Black Belt ensures that the project's analytical outputs are defensible and meet regulatory expectations. This aligns with the ethical responsibility to conduct analyses with integrity and within the bounds of the law, preventing potential legal repercussions and maintaining organizational credibility. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on the most advanced statistical capabilities without considering regulatory compliance fails to acknowledge the critical importance of data governance. This oversight can lead to the use of software that does not adequately protect sensitive data or provide the necessary auditability, potentially violating data privacy laws and leading to significant penalties. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes cost-effectiveness above all else, without a thorough assessment of the software's compliance features, is also professionally unacceptable. While cost is a factor, it should not supersede the fundamental requirements of regulatory adherence and data security. Choosing a cheaper option that lacks essential compliance functionalities exposes the organization to substantial risks. Finally, an approach that relies on outdated or unsupported software, even if it has been used previously, is problematic. Regulatory landscapes evolve, and older software may no longer meet current data protection standards or provide the necessary security patches, creating vulnerabilities and compliance gaps. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a multifaceted evaluation. First, clearly define the project's statistical needs and the regulatory environment it operates within. Second, research potential software solutions, specifically investigating their data validation, security, audit trail capabilities, and any certifications or attestations related to relevant regulations. Third, conduct a risk assessment for each potential solution, considering both technical and compliance risks. Finally, select the software that best balances statistical power, ease of use, cost, and most importantly, robust regulatory compliance and data integrity. Question 14. Quality control measures reveal significant variability in the output of a critical manufacturing process for a pharmaceutical product. A Six Sigma black belt is tasked with identifying the root cause and proposing improvements. To compare the performance of the current process with a potential new process, the black belt is considering several approaches for analyzing the collected data. Which of the following approaches best aligns with the regulatory framework for pharmaceutical manufacturing in the United States, emphasizing data integrity and auditable processes? Option A. Relying on informal observations and anecdotal feedback from operators to infer differences between the current and potential new processes. Option B. Analyzing only the data points that support the hypothesis that the new process is superior, while disregarding data that suggests otherwise. Option C. Employing a statistically validated analytical method, ensuring all data collection and analysis steps are meticulously documented and traceable according to 21 CFR Part 11 and relevant FDA guidance on data integrity. Option D. Utilizing a proprietary data analysis software that has not undergone formal validation for its intended use in a regulated pharmaceutical environment. The correct answer is C. Employing a statistically validated analytical method, ensuring all data collection and analysis steps are meticulously documented and traceable according to 21 CFR Part 11 and relevant FDA guidance on data integrity. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires a Six Sigma black belt to navigate the complexities of data integrity and regulatory compliance within the pharmaceutical industry, specifically concerning the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, FDA, regulations. The challenge lies in ensuring that the chosen method for comparative analysis not only accurately reflects process performance, but also adheres to the stringent requirements for data collection, validation, and reporting mandated by the FDA. The black belt must balance the need for efficient problem solving with the absolute necessity of maintaining data integrity and auditable processes, which are paramount for patient safety and regulatory approval. The correct approach involves using a statistically sound method for comparative analysis that is validated and documented according to FDA guidelines, such as those outlined in 21 CFR Part 11 electronic records, electronic signatures, and relevant FDA guidance on data integrity. This approach ensures that the comparison between the current and proposed processes is based on reliable, traceable, and accurate data. By employing a validated statistical method, the black belt demonstrates due diligence in assessing process changes, providing robust evidence for decision-making, and maintaining compliance with regulatory expectations for data integrity and process validation. This upholds the ethical responsibility to ensure product quality and patient safety. An incorrect approach that relies on anecdotal evidence or unvalidated data collection methods fails to meet FDA requirements for data integrity. Such methods are not auditable, lack traceability, and can lead to erroneous conclusions about process performance. This poses a significant regulatory risk, as the FDA scrutinizes data used for process validation and change control. Using unvalidated data can result in noncompliance, product recalls, and potential enforcement actions. Another incorrect approach that involves selectively presenting data to support a desired outcome is a direct violation of ethical principles and FDA regulations concerning data integrity and honesty. This practice undermines the scientific rigor of Six Sigma and can have severe consequences for patient safety and public trust. The FDA expects complete and accurate data reporting, and any form of data manipulation or omission is unacceptable. A third incorrect approach that bypasses established validation protocols for data analysis tools or methods introduces an unacceptable level of uncertainty and risk. Without proper validation, the reliability and accuracy of the analytical results cannot be assured, making it impossible to demonstrate compliance with regulatory standards for process control and validation. This lack of rigor can lead to flawed decision-making and potential regulatory noncompliance. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a thorough understanding of the applicable regulatory framework, in this case, U.S. FDA regulations. The black belt must prioritize data integrity, traceability, and validation at every stage of the measure phase. This includes selecting appropriate data collection methods, ensuring the tools used for analysis are validated, and maintaining comprehensive documentation. When faced with choices, the black belt should always opt for the approach that offers the highest degree of reliability, transparency, and compliance, even if it requires more time or resources. Consulting with regulatory affairs and quality assurance departments is also a critical step to ensure alignment with current guidelines and best practices. Question 15. Investigation of a new medical device's readiness for market launch. A certified Six Sigma black belt is tasked with ensuring all quality management requirements are met. The project team has identified potential improvements to enhance device performance, but these changes require additional testing and validation that could delay the launch. The black belt needs to decide on the best approach to manage stakeholder expectations and ensure regulatory compliance. Which approach best aligns with the certified Six Sigma black belt syllabus and professional best practices? Option A. Focus on achieving internal performance targets for the new device, assuming that meeting these metrics will inherently satisfy external stakeholder and regulatory requirements without direct consultation. Option B. Make assumptions about the needs and expectations of regulatory bodies and key customer segments based on historical data, and proceed with the launch without seeking explicit validation of these assumptions. Option C. Prioritize the immediate market launch by proceeding with the current product version, addressing potential quality concerns post-launch through iterative improvements, and informing regulatory bodies only of the planned future enhancements. Option D. Proactively engage all relevant stakeholders, including regulatory bodies, to understand their requirements and concerns regarding the new product's quality and safety, and integrate their feedback into the project plan to ensure compliance and meet expectations. The correct answer is D. Proactively engage all relevant stakeholders, including regulatory bodies, to understand their requirements and concerns regarding the new product's quality and safety, and integrate their feedback into the project plan to ensure compliance and meet expectations. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the immediate need for a product launch with the long-term implications of quality and customer satisfaction, all within the framework of regulatory compliance. The certified Six Sigma black belt must exercise careful judgment to ensure that stakeholder expectations are met without compromising ethical standards or legal obligations. The correct approach involves proactively engaging all relevant stakeholders, including regulatory bodies, to understand their requirements and concerns regarding the new product's quality and safety. This proactive engagement ensures that the Six Sigma project aligns with established quality management principles and regulatory expectations from the outset. By incorporating feedback and addressing potential issues early, the project team can mitigate risks, build trust, and ultimately deliver a product that meets both customer needs and regulatory standards. This aligns with the core principles of quality management, which emphasize customer focus and continuous improvement, and is ethically sound as it prioritizes transparency and responsible product development. An incorrect approach that prioritizes speed over thorough stakeholder consultation would be professionally unacceptable. This failure stems from a disregard for the regulatory framework that mandates certain quality and safety standards, and potentially ethical breaches by misleading stakeholders about the product's readiness or compliance. Launching a product without adequately addressing regulatory concerns or incorporating feedback from key stakeholders can lead to significant legal repercussions, product recalls, reputational damage, and erosion of customer trust. Another incorrect approach that focuses solely on internal metrics without considering external stakeholder perspectives, particularly regulatory requirements, is also professionally unsound. This approach neglects the fundamental principle that quality is defined not only by internal efficiency, but also by meeting external standards and customer expectations. Such a narrow focus can result in a product that is technically sound from an internal perspective, but fails to comply with essential regulations, rendering it unfit for market and posing risks to public safety. A third incorrect approach that involves making assumptions about stakeholder needs without direct validation is ethically questionable and professionally risky. This can lead to misaligned expectations, wasted resources, and ultimately, a product that does not meet the intended purpose or regulatory compliance. Professional decision-making in such situations requires a systematic process of stakeholder identification, analysis of their needs and expectations, including regulatory mandates, and the integration of this understanding into the Six Sigma project plan. This involves open communication, data-driven decision-making, and a commitment to ethical conduct and regulatory adherence throughout the project lifecycle. Question 16. The monitoring system demonstrates that the average cycle time for processing customer complaints has increased by 15% over the last quarter, and customer satisfaction scores related to complaint resolution have decreased by 10%. The project team has identified time to resolution as a potential critical to quality CTQ characteristic. Which of the following approaches best aligns with the regulatory framework and guidelines for identifying CTQs in the context of a certified Six Sigma Black Belt exam? Option A. Define the CTQ as number of complaints processed per hour and aim to increase this metric, as it is a readily measurable operational indicator. Option B. Define the CTQ based on anecdotal feedback from customer service representatives about which complaints are hardest to resolve, without quantitative data to support the impact on overall customer satisfaction or regulatory adherence. Option C. Define the CTQ as average cycle time for processing customer complaints and focus on reducing it, without explicitly linking it to customer satisfaction or other regulatory compliance requirements. Option D. Define the CTQ as time to resolution and focus on reducing it, ensuring the reduction directly correlates with improvements in customer satisfaction scores as mandated by the exam's regulatory jurisdiction. The correct answer is D. Define the CTQ as time to resolution and focus on reducing it, ensuring the reduction directly correlates with improvements in customer satisfaction scores as mandated by the exam's regulatory jurisdiction. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires a Six Sigma Black Belt to balance the pursuit of process improvement with strict adherence to regulatory compliance, specifically concerning the identification and management of critical to quality CTQ characteristics. The challenge lies in ensuring that the chosen CTQs are not only statistically significant drivers of customer satisfaction, but also align with the explicit requirements and definitions stipulated by the relevant regulatory framework for the certified Six Sigma Black Belt exam. Misinterpreting or misapplying these regulatory definitions can lead to non-compliance, flawed project selection, and ultimately, ineffective or even detrimental process improvements from a compliance perspective. The correct approach involves meticulously aligning the identified CTQs with the specific definitions and requirements of the regulatory framework governing the certified Six Sigma Black Belt exam. This means ensuring that the chosen CTQs are directly linked to measurable attributes that have a demonstrable impact on meeting customer or regulatory requirements, as defined by the exam's jurisdiction. The regulatory justification for this approach is rooted in the exam's mandate to assess a black belt's ability to implement Six Sigma methodologies within a compliant operational context. By focusing on CTQs that are both statistically valid and regulatorily sound, the black belt demonstrates an understanding of how to drive improvements that are not only efficient, but also legally and ethically defensible. This ensures that the improvements contribute to meeting established standards and avoiding regulatory penalties or sanctions. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on internal operational metrics without explicit linkage to customer or regulatory requirements fails to meet the regulatory definition of a CTQ as understood within the context of the exam's jurisdiction. This is a regulatory failure because it bypasses the core principle of customer focus and the need to satisfy external mandates. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes easily measurable characteristics over those with a significant impact on quality or compliance is also a regulatory failure. This demonstrates a misunderstanding of the critical aspect of CTQ, leading to improvements that may be superficial and do not address the most important quality drivers from a regulatory standpoint. Finally, an approach that relies on anecdotal evidence or subjective customer feedback without a systematic data-driven method to link these to measurable CTQs, as expected by Six Sigma principles and often implicitly by regulatory bodies, represents an ethical and professional failure. It suggests a lack of rigor and a potential for biased decision-making, which can undermine the integrity of the Six Sigma process and its compliance with established standards. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a systematic review of the regulatory framework relevant to the certified Six Sigma Black Belt exam. This includes understanding the specific definitions and expectations for identifying and managing CTQs. The Black Belt should then engage in a data-driven process to identify potential CTQs, rigorously validating them against both customer needs and regulatory requirements. This validation should be documented to demonstrate compliance and the rationale behind the chosen CTQs. Collaboration with stakeholders, including quality assurance and regulatory affairs departments, is crucial to ensure alignment and mitigate risks. Question 17. Quality control measures reveal that the reported project progress metrics from a Six Sigma Black Belts team appear significantly more favorable than the actual observed process performance and output data. The Black Belt needs to address this discrepancy. Which of the following actions best represents a professionally sound and compliant approach? Option A. Immediately report the discrepancy to senior management as a potential data integrity issue, without first conducting an investigation to understand the root cause. Option B. Conduct an independent audit of the data collection and reporting processes, validate the reported metrics against direct observations and independent data sources, and then present the findings and proposed corrective actions to the project team and stakeholders. Option C. Accept the team's reported metrics at face value, assuming they have a valid explanation that will emerge later, and continue with project planning based on this information. Option D. Instruct the team to adjust their reporting to better align with the observed performance, focusing on presenting the most positive aspects of the project's status. The correct answer is B. Conduct an independent audit of the data collection and reporting processes, validate the reported metrics against direct observations and independent data sources, and then present the findings and proposed corrective actions to the project team and stakeholders. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because the project team is reporting progress that appears inconsistent with the actual observed performance. This discrepancy can lead to several negative outcomes, including misallocation of resources, inaccurate stakeholder expectations, potential project failure, and erosion of trust. The Six Sigma Black Belt must exercise careful judgment to ensure reporting is both accurate and compliant with established project management and quality standards. The correct approach involves a thorough, data-driven investigation into the reported metrics and the underlying process performance. This includes validating the data sources, understanding the measurement system, and directly observing the process if necessary. This approach aligns with the ethical principles of integrity and honesty in reporting, which are fundamental in professional project management and Six Sigma methodologies. It also implicitly adheres to any regulatory frameworks that mandate accurate financial and operational reporting, ensuring transparency and accountability. An incorrect approach that relies solely on the team's reported figures without independent verification fails to uphold professional integrity. This can lead to regulatory noncompliance if the inaccurate reporting misrepresents the project's status to external bodies or stakeholders who rely on this information for compliance purposes. It also violates the Six Sigma principle of data-driven decision-making, as decisions would be based on potentially flawed information. Another incorrect approach, which involves selectively highlighting positive data while downplaying negative trends, constitutes a form of data manipulation. This is ethically unsound and can lead to severe regulatory repercussions if it is discovered that the reporting was intentionally misleading, especially in regulated industries where accurate reporting is a legal requirement. Such actions undermine the credibility of the project and the organization. A further incorrect approach, which involves immediately escalating the discrepancy to senior management without attempting to understand the root cause or gather more information, can be premature and disruptive. While transparency is important, a black belt's role includes problem solving. This approach bypasses the opportunity for the project team to correct any unintentional errors or for the black belt to provide guidance, potentially damaging team morale and hindering effective problem resolution. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. 1. Acknowledge the discrepancy. Recognize that the reported data does not align with observed reality. 2. Investigate thoroughly. Gather all relevant data, understand the reporting mechanisms, and if necessary, conduct direct observations or audits. 3. Communicate transparently. Once the facts are established, communicate findings clearly and objectively to the project team and relevant stakeholders. 4. Recommend corrective actions based on the investigation. Propose solutions to address the root cause of the discrepancy and improve future reporting accuracy. 5. Ensure compliance. Verify that all reporting adheres to relevant organizational policies, industry standards, and any applicable regulatory requirements. Question 18. When evaluating a proposed data collection method for a Six Sigma project aimed at improving customer service response times, which approach best balances the pursuit of data-driven insights with the imperative to protect sensitive customer information in accordance with U.S. regulatory frameworks? Option A. Proceed with data collection using the most readily available data sources, relying on general best practices for data handling without specific verification against applicable U.S. laws. Option B. Conduct a comprehensive review of the proposed data collection and usage against relevant U.S. data privacy and security regulations, e.g., CCPA, HIPAA if applicable, ensuring all necessary consents, anonymization, and security protocols are in place before proceeding. Option C. Focus solely on the potential for process improvement through data analysis, deferring any detailed consideration of data privacy and security to the project's final reporting phase. Option D. Implement the data collection immediately to gather the most current data, assuming that any necessary privacy safeguards will be addressed later in the project lifecycle. The correct answer is D. Implement the data collection immediately to gather the most current data, assuming that any necessary privacy safeguards will be addressed later in the project lifecycle. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because a Six Sigma black belt is tasked with making a critical decision that impacts both the efficiency of a process and the ethical considerations of data handling. The challenge lies in balancing the drive for data-driven improvement with the imperative to comply with regulatory frameworks governing data privacy and security. A black belt must demonstrate not only technical Six Sigma proficiency, but also a robust understanding of ethical responsibilities and legal obligations. The correct approach involves a thorough assessment of the proposed data collection method against the established regulatory framework for data privacy and security. This approach is right because it prioritizes compliance and ethical data handling, which are fundamental to maintaining trust and avoiding legal repercussions. Specifically, for a certified Six Sigma black belt operating within a jurisdiction like the United States, this would involve adherence to regulations such as the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, HIPAA, if dealing with protected health information, or the California Consumer Privacy Act, CCPA, if dealing with California consumer data. The black belt must ensure that any data collected is anonymized or pseudonymized where appropriate, that consent mechanisms are robust, and that data storage and access controls meet regulatory standards. This proactive, compliance-first stance prevents potential breaches and legal penalties, aligning Six Sigma's pursuit of excellence with legal and ethical mandates. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on the potential for data-driven improvement, without considering regulatory implications, fails to uphold professional responsibility. This approach risks violating data privacy laws, leading to significant fines, reputational damage, and loss of stakeholder trust. For instance, collecting personally identifiable information without explicit consent or a clear legal basis would be a direct violation of privacy regulations. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes speed of implementation over thoroughness in regulatory review is also professionally unacceptable. While Six Sigma emphasizes efficiency, this should never come at the expense of compliance. Rushing the data collection process without adequate due diligence regarding privacy and security can lead to unintended data breaches or misuse, which carry severe legal and ethical consequences. A further incorrect approach that relies on assumptions about data usage without verifying compliance with specific regulatory requirements is equally flawed. Assumptions are not a substitute for due diligence, especially when dealing with sensitive data. Professional decision-making process in such situations requires a structured approach. First, identify all relevant regulatory frameworks applicable to the data being handled. Second, assess the proposed data collection and usage methods against each requirement. Third, consult with legal and compliance experts if there is any ambiguity. And finally, implement the Six Sigma project in a manner that demonstrably adheres to all legal and ethical obligations. Question 19. Governance review demonstrates that the current voice of the employee vote program is largely informal, with feedback gathered sporadically through direct manager conversations and occasional unscheduled team meetings. This has led to inconsistent identification of systemic issues and a perception among some employees that their input is not systematically valued or acted upon. Which of the following approaches best addresses these deficiencies while adhering to Six Sigma principles and ethical professional conduct? Option A. Establish a formal process for employees to submit grievances directly to senior leadership without any intermediate review or analysis. Option B. Focus solely on analyzing existing operational data, e.g., absenteeism rates, turnover figures, to infer employee sentiment and identify areas for improvement. Option C. Increase the frequency of informal one-on-one meetings between managers and their direct reports to encourage more open dialogue about workplace concerns. Option D. Implement a structured VOE program that includes regular, anonymous employee surveys, dedicated feedback channels, e.g., suggestion boxes, online portals, and regular town hall meetings where feedback themes are discussed and action plans are communicated. The correct answer is D. Implement a structured VOE program that includes regular, anonymous employee surveys, dedicated feedback channels, e.g., suggestion boxes, online portals, and regular town hall meetings where feedback themes are discussed and action plans are communicated. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the imperative to gather candid employee feedback with the need to maintain a structured and actionable data collection process. The challenge lies in ensuring that the voice of the employee vote program is not only inclusive, but also yields insights that can drive meaningful improvements, all while adhering to ethical data handling and reporting practices. Careful judgment is required to select an approach that maximizes the utility of employee feedback without compromising its integrity or the trust of the employees providing it. The correct approach involves systematically collecting, categorizing, and analyzing qualitative and quantitative feedback from employees through multiple channels, followed by a structured process for prioritizing and addressing identified issues. This aligns with best practices in Six Sigma by ensuring that data-driven decisions are made based on comprehensive input. Ethically, this approach respects employees by actively seeking their input and demonstrating a commitment to acting on it. From a regulatory perspective, while specific VOE regulations may not exist, this method promotes transparency and accountability, which are foundational principles in many corporate governance frameworks, and can indirectly support compliance with broader data privacy and employee relations guidelines by fostering a culture of open communication and fair treatment. An incorrect approach that relies solely on informal, ad hoc feedback collection fails ethically by not providing a consistent or equitable opportunity for all employees to voice concerns. It also lacks the rigor necessary for effective problem solving, potentially leading to missed critical issues and a perception of disingenuous engagement. This approach can also create an environment where only the loudest voices are heard, undermining the principle of inclusivity. Another incorrect approach that focuses exclusively on quantitative metrics without qualitative context risks oversimplifying complex issues and may miss the underlying root causes of employee dissatisfaction. This can lead to superficial solutions that do not address the core problems, eroding employee trust and engagement. Ethically, it fails to fully acknowledge the nuances of employee experience. An approach that involves collecting feedback but failing to communicate back to employees about actions taken or planned is ethically problematic. It creates a black hole effect, where feedback is given but never seen to have an impact, leading to cynicism and disengagement. This lack of transparency can also be seen as a failure in good governance, as it does not demonstrate accountability for the feedback received. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes a structured, multi-channel approach to VOE. This involves defining clear objectives for feedback collection, selecting appropriate methods, surveys, focus groups, suggestion boxes, one-on-one discussions, ensuring data confidentiality and anonymity where appropriate, establishing a robust analysis and prioritization process, and crucially, closing the loop by communicating findings and actions back to employees. This systematic and transparent process ensures that VOE is a valuable tool for continuous improvement and fosters a culture of trust and engagement. Question 20. Analysis of how a Six Sigma black belt should approach the selection and prioritization of potential projects when faced with multiple proposals, each championed by different influential stakeholders with varying perceived levels of urgency and potential impact, to ensure optimal resource allocation and strategic alignment. Option A. Choose projects that appear to be the easiest to implement, as this will lead to faster wins and build momentum for the Six Sigma program. Option B. Select projects that are championed by the most senior or vocal stakeholders, assuming their influence reflects the organization's most critical needs. Option C. Focus exclusively on projects that promise the quickest and most easily quantifiable financial returns, regardless of their long-term strategic implications. Option D. Prioritize projects based on a comprehensive evaluation framework that considers strategic alignment, potential business impact, financial, operational, customer, stakeholder buy-in, and resource feasibility, using a scoring mechanism to objectively rank proposals. The correct answer is D. Prioritize projects based on a comprehensive evaluation framework that considers strategic alignment, potential business impact, financial, operational, customer, stakeholder buy-in, and resource feasibility, using a scoring mechanism to objectively rank proposals. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires a Six Sigma black belt to balance competing stakeholder interests and strategic objectives while adhering to the principles of effective project selection and prioritization. The pressure to demonstrate immediate value can sometimes overshadow the long-term strategic alignment and potential impact of a project. Careful judgment is required to ensure that the chosen projects not only address critical business needs, but also contribute to the organization's overall strategic direction and are feasible within resource constraints. A correct approach involves a structured evaluation of potential Six Sigma projects based on their alignment with strategic goals, potential for significant impact, financial, operational, customer satisfaction, stakeholder buy-in, and resource availability. This method ensures that projects are selected based on objective criteria and a clear understanding of their contribution to the organization's mission and vision. From a regulatory and ethical perspective, this approach promotes responsible resource allocation and ensures that the organization is pursuing initiatives that deliver genuine value and are sustainable, thereby upholding fiduciary duties to shareholders and stakeholders. It aligns with the ethical imperative to use organizational resources efficiently and effectively. An approach that prioritizes projects solely based on the loudest stakeholder voice or the perceived ease of implementation is professionally unacceptable. This can lead to the selection of projects that are not strategically aligned, have limited impact, or consume resources that could be better utilized elsewhere. Such a failure to conduct a thorough, objective evaluation can result in wasted investment, missed opportunities, and a lack of demonstrable progress towards strategic objectives, potentially violating ethical obligations to stakeholders for prudent management. Another incorrect approach is to select projects based purely on short-term, easily quantifiable financial gains without considering the broader strategic implications or potential risks. While financial return is important, an overemphasis on immediate gains can lead to neglecting projects with greater long-term strategic value or those that address critical operational inefficiencies that, while harder to quantify initially, are essential for sustained success. This can be seen as a failure to exercise due diligence and a lack of foresight, which are critical professional responsibilities. Finally, an approach that ignores the availability of resources and expertise, leading to the selection of overly ambitious projects, is also professionally unsound. This can result in project failures, demotivation of teams, and a loss of credibility for the Six Sigma program. It demonstrates a lack of realistic planning and an inability to manage expectations, which are fundamental to successful project execution and ethical professional conduct. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve 1. Establishing clear, objective criteria for project selection and prioritization that are aligned with organizational strategy. 2. Engaging key stakeholders early to understand their needs and concerns, but ensuring that final decisions are based on a balanced assessment of all relevant factors. 3. Conducting thorough due diligence on each potential project, including impact assessment, feasibility studies, and resource planning. 4. Utilizing a robust scoring or ranking mechanism to objectively compare and prioritize projects. 5. maintaining transparency throughout the selection process and communicating the rationale for decisions to all stakeholders.